This episode of 5 and 5, we're coming from Namibia, and we're delighted to welcome Shuka, who's a director of one of Namibia's leading law firms, to join us to talk about the economy and all things legal in Windhoek. For those who've not been to Namibia, it is one of the largest countries in Africa. Although when you drive through it, like I did, it doesn't. You don't see another person for at least a day or so. It's got a small population but big landmass, and it's always been very big for exporting diamonds and for natural resources, but very recently, in the last couple of years, has found one of the world's largest oil supplies off the coast of Namibia, and that will lead to huge economic growth over the next decade and a half. So without further ado, introducing Chuka, and he can give us an introduction to Namibia.
Well, Namibia is a very small population. We are a population of just under 3 million people, and for a rather large territory. But you can imagine that with such a small population, businesses, especially small ones, do tend to struggle because you've got such a small consumer base. But Namibia has somehow managed to make what it's very good at work for it, although it has a small population. And one of those things is the fact that Namibia enjoys one of the more stable and peaceful political environments when you compare it to some of its neighbors or the rest of Africa. There's also been significant investment in infrastructure, especially road infrastructure and telecommunications. So there are certain things that the government has identified over the years that has helped maintain Namibia's status as some form of preferred investment destination in Africa and Southern Africa, despite its small size. And it continues to grow in certain of the industries that it enjoys a rather strong position is, for example, in the mining sector, the fishing sector. Tourism has always been massive for Namibia, and it continues to be, and obviously also in the agricultural space when it comes to the meat and livestock and so on. So those key industries continue to drive Namibia's economy. So you can imagine something like COVID was rather terrifying, especially from a tourism sector perspective. And then also recently, just specific to Namibia, the United States of America recently completed the I believe it's one of its largest embassies anywhere in the world that was built here in the capital city in Windhoek, and that in itself also goes to show the kind of confidence that the international community has in Namibia's economy going forward. They are growing, and they're growing fast. So you both in the in-house space and in the private practice space, the one good thing about Namibia is that as a consequence of the graduates that either study law in Namibia or study across the border, predominantly in South Africa, when they finish and graduate from law school, they inevitably come back into the Namibian market, and that number has continued to grow year on year. So you genuinely find there's a steady stream of feeding new law graduates and new lawyers every single year. And something that is unique, that I think that is unique to Namibia, is that the lawyers seem to determine very early whether they want to be in-house or in private practice. And because there are opportunities to do so, they inevitably make the decision and move to one or the other. Well, the Namibia has a very good ability, or a fantastic ability, to identify where its strong points are and taking advantage of that in order to sort of cater for the small population that we have, where you'll find that we are a predominantly exporting nation. With such a small population, we don't really produce much. But one of the things that was identified was that we have the ability to provide a world-class port. So what has happened over the past couple of years is that the Walvis Bay port along our coastline has been expanded rather significantly, and because the country is positioning itself as a gateway to the millions of people that do business along the coastline and don't necessarily want to go all the way down to the coastline to South Africa or anywhere else, really. I would say yes. Apart from the new graduates coming in every year from the different countries that they're choosing to study at, whether it's Namibia, South Africa, or further afield, we're also seeing an influx of international law firms joining the fray. So we have seen a couple of them. I'm not going to name them, who've already over the past 2 years set up here, whether they're originally South African law firms or more international larger firms that have set up and are now providing legal services like the rest of us. And we are aware that there are several others whose applications are sitting with our legal practice regulator at the moment. We are all very excited to see what the new president's policy shifts will be. We will very likely, for the first time now, be under the leadership of a female president. There will be policy changes. Inevitably, policy changes have a ripple effect into everything legal. There will be changes in statutes, changes in priority sectors of the economy that will receive policy attention, as a consequence, legal attention. So we will see the legal, the framework, the political sphere, the political space, business space, everything that the new president and her cabinet will want to push as their particular agenda to develop the country will receive attention, and that will inevitably mean shifting from where it is now to where they want it to be, and that is going to encourage commercial activity, encourage a significant amount of legal activity, which is always good for the lawyers. But because this is the first time that we will be under this under the leadership of a female president, there is a lot of excitement about Namibia, not just internally but also internationally. And like I mentioned earlier, with the South African law firms setting up shop, we can tell that everybody is excited to see what the new leadership is going to do, especially about the oil and gas, the tourism, and obviously in the fishing sector as well, because we've had some bad publicity in that space over the past few years. So we're excited. There is so much happening in Namibia at the moment, and after November and the elections, Namibia will look very different in the next 5 to 10 years.